Okay, so we need a piece of tagboard paper or a manila folder, doesn't matter what color, because we're just going to use it to create a stencil. We're going to need a ruler, and we're going to need a pair of scissors and some kind of tape. I've got a big thing of masking tape, but I also have some Scotch tape. All will work just fine for this. Okay, so here's what I want to do. On any side you want, I'm going to go on this shorter side. I'm going to measure out, start at 0. I'm going to come out 2 inches and put a mark, and come out 2 inches and make a mark, and then I'm going to connect those with a straight line that runs through the whole thing. Okay, so we've got that line drawn there, 2 inch wide, and then I'm going to turn my paper a little bit, and I've got 0 here on the edge. I'm going to come over 2 inches, put a mark. I'm going to go to 4 and put a mark as well, and then I'm going to move up my ruler up to the top and do that again. You always want 2 marks when you're drawing a straight line. I got 2 here and here. The reason you want the 2 marks is so that you can connect the top to the bottom. I've seen people do they'll put a mark at the bottom and then they'll try and put their ruler straight up and down. More often than not, that just does not work. So put a mark at the bottom, 2 and 4, put a mark at the top, 2 and 4, and then connect with some straight up and down lines. Okay? So after we get those squares drawn, we're going to cut them out. We're really only using 1, but we made 2 just in case we make a mistake. Then we'll have a backup. I'm going to carefully cut this out. Really try and cut on those lines. I'll set this extra to the side. That's my backup, and I don't need my extra big piece of paper. I'm going to set that to the side, and we're ready to start with our green. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this camera in real close so you can see what we're going to do. So here's what I want you to do. We're going to draw a line that goes from this corner here out toward the middle and then comes back down to this corner here. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. In fact, we'd rather it not be overly complicated so that it is easier to cut. So I think I'm gonna go out. Your line doesn't have to be the same as mine. It can be any which way you want it to be. But I'm gonna go, as I said, from this corner here out toward the middle, and then stops down here. And then we'll cut that out with our scissors. When we cut, we want to really try to stay on the line, or as close to it as we can. Okay, so I'm cutting on that line. And then I will set it down so it kind of looks like a puzzle piece inside another puzzle piece. Okay, so watch this. I'm going to take my puzzle piece, and to make my tessellation, I'm going to slide this puzzle piece across to the other side, like that. And then I'm going to tape that into place. Really want to try and get those corners lined up and no space between. So you really got to take a moment and do a good job with that. And I've got these little bit of extra, so I'm going to take my scissors and cut that off. So now I've taken my square and I've created a new shape with it. Okay, so next we're going to do that same idea with either the top or the bottom. We're going to draw a line from one side, comes out toward the middle, and then joins with the other side. The reason I say with the top or the bottom is because if you drew that first line maybe a little too close to the top, you probably wouldn't want another line there, so you could put it down toward the bottom. Mine's sort of in the middle, so I could put mine on the top or the bottom. I think I'm going to put mine on the bottom. So here we go. I'm going to draw my line. And then I'm going to cut on that line. Again, yours does not have to look like mine. I'll put that piece back into place like it was. So I've got this cut, and I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to slide it, if I can get it to go across, slide it up to the top. If you cut yours on the top, then you'll slide it down to the bottom, obviously. And then I will tape that into place. Make sure your corners line up really well. Remove any of the extra tape that you might have. So now we have our shape cut. I'm going to pull back the camera a little bit, and I'm going to grab a piece of white paper, and I'm going to lay my shape onto that white paper. And then I can turn it all the way around. I can just kind of make a decision which direction do I want it to be facing. You can even turn the whole thing upside down if you really want to, and go from there. I think I'm gonna leave it right side up, and I'm gonna, once I decide where I like it to be, I'm gonna trace it. Trace very carefully, try not to press down too hard. And then, if you did it right, you should have a tracing of your stencil. And if you cut it right, what will happen is you can slide that piece and it will fit in next to your previous piece. You can slide it up and it'll fit. Slide it this way and it'll fit. Or you can slide it down and it'll fit. Okay? Okay, so we've got this piece, we've got it traced, and we know it will work if we were to repeat it on and on, filling the paper. But before we do that, we've got to decide, what is this thing? What kind of animal or creature, maybe plant or person, is it? I'll set this off here to the side, and I'm going to just kind of use my imagination on this. I can twist it around, look at it from different angles, and decide what is it. Now here's the important thing. You cannot have anything go outside of those lines, and all the lines that we have to be the edges. Now I tend to see fish. No matter what I cut, I like to see fish for some reason. I mostly think that's because God created such a variety of fish in the world that no matter what you're looking at, I bet you could find a fish in it. And I'll give you a perfect example of what I'm talking about. I'm looking at this here. I could easily draw an eye here. Some gills. Add a fin. Some details to that fin. And everything else around it is easily a fin. I always think of lionfish. Lionfish has all those unique fins that are sticking out everywhere. Now, if you don't see a fish, that's totally okay. Maybe you see a bird or some kind of animal. And some of the fun ones are ones where it's an animal, but maybe the animal's wearing a hat, or the animal has a bow tie, or maybe it's just the head of a dog, or a lion, or a giraffe, or something. It could be a person. It doesn't have to be overly realistic. You can have some fun with it. Okay, so once you've decided, yes, this is exactly what I want it to do, how I want it to look, I don't want to add anything extra to it, then what you'll do is you'll repeat that tracing out beyond by laying that piece down, tracing it again. Oh, don't let it move. It's kind of super important that it stays in place. It's also extremely important that you line up where those corners are and where they would have met on there. I notice this is slightly off, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure my corners line up and that fin is will be off, but that's okay. Actually, I can fix that by not tracing this bottom section. So you can bring this down here, and I can trace this one, and that will fix that fin's issue. Then I'll go over here, line this up, making sure those corners line up really well. bring this down, this lines up. I can trace that guy and this. And I'm going to pause and go ahead and finish this. So now we have the whole paper full of shapes, and that's what we're going to move forward with this. And that'll be step 2 or part 2 of this series of videos.